This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. According to a study by S&P Global, within a week of President Trump imposing 25% tariffs on vehicles imported from Canada and Mexico, car and truck production in North America could drop by 20,000 vehicles a day, and that would translate to nearly 4.8 million vehicles a year. However, while the president threatened to impose those tariffs, they're currently under a one-month reprieve until April 2nd. In one scenario, S&P Global gives a 30% chance for a quick resolution that would avoid the tariffs. But that reprieve only applies to vehicles that are compliant with the USMCA Free Trade Agreement. In a second scenario, S&P gives a 50% probability for an extended period of turmoil that would last 4 to 5 months. It says production of vehicles that are not compliant would be slashed or stopped altogether. And in a third scenario, with a 20% probability, is what it calls a tariff winter, where automakers and suppliers would be forced to move production to the U.S., which would result in suboptimal sourcing. It predicts new car and truck sales in the U.S. would drop by 10% or by about 1.5 million vehicles. And in other tariff news, as we reported yesterday, BMW said it would eat the tariff cost on some of its Mexican-made models, and now we have an idea of how much that is. The automaker expects to spend about €1 billion on tariffs this year, which also includes European taxes on its China-made EVs. This and a number of new model ramp-ups will have an impact on BMW's financial performance, but it's still forecasting a similar profit before taxes as last year because the company hit its highest investment level ever, roughly 18 billion euros in 2024. However, having a similar performance is not really great news for BMW. Sales across the entire group fell 4% to just over 2.45 million units. That helped drag revenue down by nearly 8.5% to roughly 142 billion euros. Its EBIT came in at 11.5 billion, a drop of about 38%, which was almost the same as its net profit, which hit nearly 7.7 billion euros in 2024. I mentioned that BMW is working on a number of new model ramp-ups, which include ICE, hybrid, plug-in hybrid, BEV, and fuel cells. The first model from its new class family of EVs, the iX3, hits the market later this year and will be followed next year by a sedan that's likely the next Gen 3 series. BMW's fuel cell vehicle won't be out until 2028, but it will probably be a high-volume SUV like the X5 that it's already started testing in, and it's jointly developing the drive system with Toyota. And to handle all these new product launches, the company announced that it promoted its board member in charge of purchasing and supply to take over the role of development. Joachim Post will take over from Frank Weber on June 1st. The United Auto Workers filed unfair labor charges against Volkswagen, accusing the automaker of trying to cut jobs. VW is cutting production at its plant in Tennessee by moving it to a two-shift model because of weak EV demand. That plant builds the ID.4 electric. VW says it's offering workers a voluntary severance package, retirement options, and benefits. But UAW President Shawn Fain blasted the buyouts and said that the union, quote, has notified the Trump administration of Volkswagen's unacceptable, anti-union, anti-worker, and anti-American conduct. The UAW and VW are currently negotiating their first contract after the union won its very first election at the Tennessee plant last year.
Developing today's vehicles, issues can happen in an instant. What good is knowing your problems without the data to solve them? Meet Wireless Neovi Cloud, your secure off-the-shelf solution, empowering real-time collaboration for quick resolution. With Wireless Neovi Cloud, your team can prevent issues before they can escalate. Driver communication data and remote diagnostics to analyze and resolve your problems using OTA, allowing your executives oversight throughout the process. Wireless Nearby Cloud, your vehicle update solution in production and on the road. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
Mercedes revealed the all-new CLA, which rides on the automaker's next-gen platform. The all-electric version will launch first, followed by a hybrid later this year. The EV will come in rear-wheel drive with a 200-kilowatt or roughly 270 horsepower electric motor, or there's an all-wheel drive model with 260 kilowatts or about 350 horsepower. Both feature a two-speed transmission and an 85 kilowatt-hour battery pack that provides nearly 800 kilometers or almost 500 miles of range on the WLTP test cycle. And thanks to an 800-volt architecture, the new CLA can add up to 325 kilometers or 200 miles of range in 10 minutes of charging. The hybrid version could more accurately be described as an EREV or extended range electric without an external charging port. It features a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that's paired with 48-volt mild hybrid tech, as well as an 8-speed transmission with an integrated electric motor. That motor can provide support at any speed, and when less than 20 kilowatts or about 27 horsepower is needed, which would be light loads up to 100 kilometers an hour or about 62 miles an hour, it can drive on electric-only power. The new CLA is also the first model to fully run off of Mercedes' new in-house developed operating system, which helps enable over-the-air updates, the operation of a new AI-enhanced infotainment system, and Level 2 hands-free driving. The commercial division of Stellantis, called Stellantis Pro One, is going to build and supply Iveco with electric vans for Europe for the next 10 years. The two models will be based on mid- and large-size van platforms from Stellantis, but rebranded as Ivecos. They'll be built in Italy, Poland, and France, and should hit the market next year. We find this a little interesting because Iveco also has a deal with Hyundai to use its ELCV, or Electric Light Commercial Vehicle platform, for a model called the E-Movie that's aimed at the European market as well. I'm guessing the vehicles won't compete against each other, and it looks more like Iveco is turning to major automakers to build its vehicles instead of investing to build them on its own. Tesla is developing a stripped-down version of the Model Y in China to compete with lower-cost competitors. The goal is reportedly to chop $7,000 to $11,000 from the cost of the car, which currently sells in China for a little over $36,000. The cost cutting would come from pulling out content and by simplifying manufacturing. Mass production could start early next year, and the cheaper version could also be built in the US and Germany. But production could start earlier if the current Refresh Y fails to boost sales. And here's a sales stat that caught our eye. Skoda is now the #3 car brand in Europe, only behind Volkswagen and Toyota. It surged past Renault and BMW last year. Skoda is owned by the VW Group, but unlike the VW brand, it's growing strong in the EU, with sales up 14% in 2024. A key factor for the Czech manufacturer's success is its lower-priced cars, like the L-Rock EV, which sells for about $35,800, the same price as its gas equivalent. The EV price war in China put a dent in the profits of the world's largest EV battery maker. CATL reported that its revenue fell nearly 10% last year to just over $50 billion. It's the first time CATL's revenue has fallen since it started releasing its financial numbers in 2015. And while its net profit rose 15% to $7 billion, it was the company's slowest pace in 6 years. Okay, time for another Autoline poll. Automakers are trying to figure out whether they should use touchscreens or buttons and knobs or a combination of the two. What feedback would you give to the car companies? 1. I really don't like screens and find them awkward to use. 2. I prefer screens because they really unclutter the interior. 3. Give us a combination of the two, with wiper and turn signal stalks and a radio knob. 4. None of the above. See my opinion below. So let us know what you think, and we'll report the results on Monday. And that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope that you have a great weekend.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Intrepid Control Systems. Over-the-air engineering boost your game. And by Teijin Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teijin Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.